All right, hey, I'm back, and today we are going to learn about linear equations written in standard form. Standard form is when it is written as ax plus by equals c. A few things to remember about standard form is that standard form cannot contain fractions or decimals. A, b, and c must be integers. What is an integer? We all should remember that an integer is a positive or negative whole number. The next thing that we need to remember about standard form is that the lead coefficient, or a, should be a positive number. If it's not positive, then we make it positive by multiplying every term by -1. I'm going to show you 3 examples and hopefully you will understand. Again, this is a fast mini lesson, just reviewing things that you should already know. If you have questions, leave it in the comments or email me. So, for example 1, we have y equals 2x minus 6. Well, the first thing that I would like to ask you is, what is standard form? If you remember from our previous notes, standard form is ax plus by equals c. So, for my understanding, I'm going to write that at the top. ax plus by equals c. That will help me so in the end I can check to see if it's in that form. So if I look at this equation here, it's written in slope-intercept form. It's written in y equals mx plus b. So I need to move the x from the right side of the equal sign to the left. How do I move something across an equal sign? Well, I do the inverse operation. What is the inverse or opposite of positive 2x? I hope that you're saying to yourself that is negative 2x or subtracting 2x. So I'm going to subtract 2x. If you remember, what we do to one side of the equation, we must do to the other. So I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. Now I am going to work out my problem. I cannot take 2x away from y because they are not the same terms. Remember, I can multiply and divide unlike terms, but I cannot add or subtract unlike terms. So since I cannot combine those, I simply bring everything down negative 2x, and that y is positive, so I'm going to put plus y equals. Now, if I have 2 x's and I take 2 x's away, I now have no x's on this side. I'm doing nothing to the -6 because there's nothing under it. There's no other term that is a whole number. So I'm just going to bring down -6. So I ask myself, is it in the form of ax plus by equals c? Ax plus by equals c. What's the b here? There's nothing in front of the y, so I know that b here is 1. Now the only other problem is if I remember, my second note said that a cannot be negative. If I look here, a is negative. How do I get rid of that? Well, if I remember back from my notes, it said to multiply every term by -1. Negative 2x times -1 is positive 2x. Y times -1 is negative y. And -6 times -1 is 6, because a negative times a negative is a positive. And now my equation is written in standard form. All right, let's try a little bit more difficult one. Here I see that it has a fraction, but I know that in my notes I cannot have fractions. A, B, or C cannot be a fraction. How do I get rid of fractions? Well, if you remember, I told you it's easy to work with these kind of equations if you get rid of the fraction. The way you get rid of it is multiplying every term by the denominator. Here, the denominator is 2. So I'm going to multiply every term by 2. Put my little note up here. All right, so now 2 times y, I get 2y. 2 times 1/2. Any fraction multiplied by its denominator is going to leave me with the numerator. But in case you didn't remember that, we'll do it off to the side. 2 times 1/2. I have a whole number and a fraction. I need to make the whole number a fraction. I do that by putting it over 1. Now, to multiply fractions, I multiply straight across. 2 times 1 is 2, and 1 times 2 is 2. 2 over 2 is 1. So that leaves me with 1x. Do I need to write the 1? No. Can I? Yes. But I don't because I don't want to waste my ink or my time. Now I'm going to multiply 2 times 4, which is 8, and that's a plus 8. Now I have an equation free of fractions, but I still don't have it in standard form. I need to get the x from the right side to the left side. How do I do that? I do the inverse operation. The opposite of a positive x is a negative x or subtracting x. What I do to one side of the equal sign, I must do to the other. I cannot subtract these terms because they are not alike, so I just bring them down. Negative x, that 2y, if you look at it, is positive. X minus x gives me no x's, and then 8. Once again, I check. ax plus by equals c. Yes, I have it in the correct form. And the a here is actually -1 because there's no number written in front of the x. If you remember, we talked about it was 1, but I didn't want to waste my ink. I cannot have a negative as a, so I multiply everything by -1. Negative x times -1 is positive x. 2 times -1 is negative 2y. And 8 times -1 is -8. So this is my equation now written in standard form. All right, I have one last example for you. This example here contains multiple fractions. So I can go through and multiply by the denominator. But if I look here, I have 2 denominators, so I have to figure out what to do. So if I look at the 2 denominators, I have to find the least common multiple. What is the smallest number that both 4 and 8 will go into? I hope you said 8. But if you're unsure, then you list the multiples of the numbers. The multiples of 4 will list the first 5, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. The first 5 of 8 are 8, 16, 24, 32, 40. Now I'll look through my list and I find the smallest one they have in common, and that's going to be 8. So now I multiply everything over here by 8. Make my little notation up here. All right, y times 8, it's going to give me 8 y's. Now here comes the hard part. I have to multiply 8 times 3/4. So I'll come over here, 8 times 3/4. Remember, I have a whole number and a fraction. I have to make them both fractions. So I put this one over 1, and then I multiply straight across. 8 times 3 is 24, and 1 times 4 is 4. I'm left with 24/4. 24 divided by 4, I know is 6. So the answer over here is going to be 6x. And now I have to multiply 8 times 1/8. So need to make this fraction. I put it over 1 and I multiply straight across. 8 times 1 is 8. 1 times 8 is 8. And 8 divided by 8 is 1. So I'm left with -1. All right, so now I still have to get it into standard form. I need to get my x from the right side to the left side. So I have to do the inverse of 6x, or positive 6x. So that would be subtracting 6x from both sides. Sorry, I'm not a good hand model. All right, again, negative 6x and 8y are not like terms, so I'm just going to bring everything down. 6x minus 6x is 0, and I bring down my -1. All right, last step, I'm going to check. ax plus by equals c. The only problem is a, again, is negative. You will run into this a lot. You will have problems where a is not negative, but unfortunately, all of ours today have been that way. Maybe I'll throw in some tomorrow that are not. So the way we get rid of that negative is multiplying all terms by -1. Negative 6x times -1. A negative times a negative is a positive, so that gives us positive 6x. 8y times -1. Well, a positive times a negative is a negative. And then -1 times -1. A negative times a negative is a positive, and it leaves me with 1. So The equation y equals 3/4 x minus 1/8 in sloped intercept form is the same as 6x minus 8y equals 1 in standard form. The things that you need to remember for standard form is ax plus by equals c. A, b, and c must be integers, and a cannot be negative. To get rid of that negative, we multiply all terms by -1. To get rid of those fractions, we multiply all terms by the denominator or the least common denominator if there are more than one fraction. Hopefully tomorrow I can go over changing from standard to slope-intercept form. Please let me know if you have any questions. Hope y'all are having a great week. See you later.